We have some breaking news regarding the Chicago Blackhawks. They appear to be maybe facing 3 additional lawsuits relating to the Kyle Beach incident and former video coach Brad Aldridge. Plus, last night the Blackhawks had a town hall meeting to outline their plans for the future, and owner Rocky Wirtz had a complete meltdown at a couple reporters for some questions, which was completely embarrassing. We'll discuss this whole situation coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some news from the NHL regarding the Chicago Blackhawks. TSN and Rick Westhead are reporting that the Blackhawks may face an additional 3 lawsuits. Now, it's not a guarantee they're all going to be turning this into a lawsuit, but there is 3 additional victims that are coming forward regarding former Blackhawks video coach Brad Aldridge. So there could be additional lawsuits like we saw in the case of the high school hockey player in Michigan. Of course, we know that Kyle Beach was the victim in Chicago. We know more details about what happened there, and clearly by the Blackhawks not doing the right thing, having authorities involved, having this man arrested or at least investigated, and then which would likely have led to an arrest. He went on to have numerous other victims, and it's still a situation when you think you might know who all the other victims are, or at least how many there are. You don't. New information still coming forward here, so clearly some more victims, at least one of them, which we're referring to right now as John Doe 3. The identities have all remain anonymous here for all these other victims that are coming forward. The additional victims are not players from the Chicago Blackhawks, but they are players that he worked with after leaving the Chicago Blackhawks. So we'll have to remain to be seen what comes from that. I mean, I know the Blackhawks are obviously taking a big hit when it comes to reputation and financially as well because of the penalties, which are certainly justified for everything that's happened here. Now, last night, the Chicago Blackhawks had a town hall style meeting. It featured, of course, Rocky Wirtz, who's the owner of the Blackhawks, his son, Danny Wirtz, who's now president and CEO, and then, of course, Jamie Faulkner as well, who's the head of the business side of the operations. Of course, Ed Olczyk was up there with them as part of the panel, kind of being like sort of like your master of ceremonies, if you will. Everything was broadcast live directly on YouTube and Twitter, so I will link to the YouTube clip here on the Chicago Blackhawks YouTube channel so you can watch this for yourself. But what happened and what transpired during this town hall was shocking. It was embarrassing, and it completely takes any work that the Blackhawks have done to try to move forward, repair image, etc., and just threw it all directly right out the window. I mean, obviously a lot of things had started well with opening remarks and a few questions, but once we got to the media, it really went downhill and it went bad in a hurry. And the questions that were asked, in my opinion, were completely fair. They were asked almost in a way where it was like a big softball pitch, I guess, if you will, coming in just ready to hit a home run if the answer would have been done properly. And if Rocky Wirtz would have just butted out, because the question was directed at his son Danny, who I think would have done a much better job at answering the question, since he's been doing a lot of the work trying to fix things and repair things and get this franchise hopefully back on track. But I think they've got a lot of work to do to kind of, repair its image, build trust again, and all those things that are so vitally important here. But I'm going to now take you through some of the, I guess we'll just kind of read through the transcript, if you will. First question came from Mark Lazerus of The Athletic, and like I said, this was an opportunity for the Blackhawks to hit a home run out of the park with a real solid answer, but instead Rocky Wirtz took over, even though the question wasn't directed at him, had a complete meltdown and completely embarrassed the organization. So the question was posed as this. He says, "My question is for Danny. I know we're looking forward here, but I think we have to look back also. I think much of what happened to Kyle Beach stemmed from a power imbalance between coach and player and the powerlessness of a player in that situation. So what are the Blackhawks doing? What have the Blackhawks done? And what will the Blackhawks do to empower a player in a similar situation to make sure this doesn't happen again?" Is that not a fair question? The Blackhawks themselves, obviously we had the investigation, we had the report. The owner himself, Rocky Wirtz, they have not had to publicly face the music and answer questions like this to the media regarding this situation. How did they not think it was bound to come up in some capacity? And here is what happened. Instead of Danny answering the question, Rocky Wirtz intervenes and takes over, and here was his response. He says, "I'm going to answer the question, not Danny. I think the report speaks for itself. The people that were involved are no longer here. We're not looking back at 2010. We're looking forward, and we're not going to talk about 2010. Lazerus then says, "I'm not talking about 2010. And he says, "I know, I'm not either. We're not going to talk about what happened. We're moving forward. That is my answer. Now, what's your next question?" Then Danny Wirtz actually tries to intervene and tries to give a better answer here. And he says, "I can pick up too what we're doing." And he gets cut off by his father, Rocky, and says, "No, that's none of your business. That's none of your business. What we're going to do today is our business. I don't think any of it's your business." Lazerus responds with, "How is that not my business?" Rocky Wirtz then says, "Because I don't think it's any of your business. You don't work for the company. If somebody in the company asks that question, we'll answer it. And I think you should get on to the next subject. We're not going to talk about Kyle Beach. We're not going to talk about anything that happened. Now we're moving on. What more do I have to say? You want to keep asking the same question? Ask the next question." And then he says, "I think you've said enough." Completely embarrassing. All they had to do was talk about some of the things that they've done and they're going to do to make sure that this kind of an awful situation never happens again. How do you think players are going to feel, or parents of players as well, when the draft comes around and the Chicago Blackhawks are drafting your player? Do you think parents are going to feel comfortable that their 18-year-old son is being drafted by a team that's not going to protect him, and that he could be abused by a coach and nothing would be done about it and it would just be covered up? I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. The answer from Rocky Wirtz here, like I said, takes all the work that they've done, which I know they still have a long ways to go, but it just throws it out the window. There's no transparency there. There's absolutely no accountability, and it just completely embarrassing. Now, obviously, Mark Lazerus went on to write an article about the situation here. I'm going to give you a little excerpt from that article as well, not just a transcript of the conversation. He says here, "In fact, both Danny Wirtz and Jamie Faulkner said a lot of the right things on Wednesday about hockey culture, engaging fans, about building a modern front office with sustaining long-term success, just like Danny and Rocky did in their prepared remarks when the Jenner and Block report was released. We heard the words transparency and accountability an awful lot on Wednesday night and in the months leading up to it, both in public statements and on background assurances from team representatives. Then Rocky Wirtz scowled and yelled, 'We're not going to talk about Kyle Beach,' and it all meant nothing. No transparency, no accountability, and most of all, no credibility." How can Rocky Wirtz really lead an organization in the NHL acting like this? I mean, obviously he was cleared in the report, but that doesn't mean anything to me, really. Like, obviously, he's still extremely defiant and defensive of this whole situation, and I'm sure they don't really feel like talking about it because it's an incredibly awful thing that happened under the watchful eye of their organization. But how can Gary Bettman not, at some point here, kind of intervene and talk to Wirtz about how this is being handled? This is completely ridiculous. Then another reporter comes in to ask a question as well about ticket sales and the fact that they're down and the resale market is not good. Obviously, people buying season tickets often sell a lot of them on the secondary market. And obviously, they're going for so cheap that it's, what's the incentive right now, right? And he completely berated him as well, saying, "Oh, what do you work in our ticket department now? We're not talking about old business. We're talking about new business," and just completely went off the rails, and he would not stop. I mean, thankfully, things didn't go too much longer, but even the looks on the face of Danny Wirtz and Jamie Faulkner and Eddie Olczyk up there on the panel with them, you could tell they were pretty surprised, and I don't want to speak for them, but it didn't look like they were overly impressed as well. Now, one thing that did happen afterwards is we did have a statement issued by President Jamie Faulkner a couple of hours after the event took place on behalf of owner Rocky Wirtz, and here is what it said. "Tonight at the Chicago Blackhawks Town Hall, my response to 2 questions crossed the line. I want to apologize to the fans and those reporters, and I regret that my response overshadowed the great work this organization is doing to move forward. We have the right leaders and right processes in place to create a safe environment for our employees and players." So I've seen the reporters in question here put on Twitter, they received this apology or written statement via email. I can't believe what we saw from the Blackhawks. As soon as you start to think they're moving forward and they have learned things from what happened to Kyle Beach and how they can be a big part of change to make sure not only with their organization but the entire league or sports that things like that don't happen in the future, and he took all that work and he just threw it in the garbage, in my opinion. It makes it that much harder to trust them, for them to have any kind of accountability, and for you to think that they're really doing a lot of the right things moving forward. I really hope the NHL has some sort of intervention here. I think it might be time for Rocky Wirtz to move along and let his son Danny take even more of the responsibility here or something. I don't know what's going to give here, but clearly, they could have answered that question with remorse and with some actions that they were taking, and they just completely screwed that up and made things a whole lot worse when it comes to their image. So let me know what your thoughts are on the Rocky Wirtz answers. Do you think the NHL will actually do anything? And it looks as though they may be facing additional lawsuits, which I'm sure they maybe already be aware of. And I can understand it's a touchy subject, but hey, it happened. You have to deal with it head on, and it's only fair that you publicly answer a few questions on this heinous situation that happened to a victim all those years ago. Let me know what your thoughts are. We'll discuss further down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.